Hi, I just got back from seeing Alien Covenant, which is Prometheus 2, I guess. So it's time to do another one of these little things again, kind of like a stream of consciousness sort of train of thought ramble about what I thought of it. You'll have to forgive me if my voice is weird at any point in this. I'm still getting over that cold. This is Alien Covenant, which is, I will call it Prometheus 2. It's a sequel to Prometheus, which in itself I would class as a spin-off of the Alien series, in a similar way to how the Alien vs Predator films were a spin-off of the Alien series, but this is a better spin-off, that's a worse spin-off, let's just say that. However, Prometheus, when I went and saw it, was kind of ridiculous. There are so many things you can point out in that film and just go, is this what we were waiting for? Is this Ridley Scott now? After I saw that, I was convinced that between that and Robin Hood, Ridley Scott had forgotten how to make films. I liked this film though. I don't know if I could call it a return to form, but it might be something to do with them having better script writers. They've certainly got a better musician. Yeah, so the music in Prometheus was not very effective. The music in Alien, I believe, is by Jerry Goldsmith, and it's fucking incredible. The music in Alien Covenant here is by someone called Jed Kurzel, and I don't know if he improvises much stuff at all. To be honest, what he seems to do is take the score from Prometheus, take the score from Alien, and replay really well-known themes from them, from both movies. If you want to make a Predator film, you can't make it without getting someone who can do the original Predator music by Alan Silvestri really good. And yeah, this guy has taken the themes from Alien and replayed them, and he's done very good. So, I don't know, the bad things about Prometheus, I'm not going to go and spend ages outlining them because this isn't a Prometheus kind of review ramble, but I have to class it as a spin-off because the way Ridley Scott took the engineers, should I say the way he abused the space jockeys by turning them into the engineers, then they're not like slightly taller than human, very white men in masks. That's their actual face, for fuck's sake. That's how I see it, and they're gigantic. And yeah, I remember listening to the commentary Ridley Scott did for the original Alien movie. I've got it here somewhere. And the way he talked about the original ideas for Alien and what the space jockey could have been. The original concepts by the writers were that this was like gremlins on a World War II bomber, and the guys flying the bomber, and these gremlins appear, and they work their way from the back of the bomber slowly to the front and kill off the pilot. That evolved into what we know as Alien, and the space jockey after that point was like this alien who flew over like enemy planets. Like they're this race who's at war with other races, and they're these gigantic creatures. And they've invented this as biological warfare, which Idris Elba's character brings up in Prometheus, that, hey, this is a bunch of bioweapons, but it's undersimplified. Can I say that? Undersimplified? In Prometheus, they go really complicated, and it's annoying enough that the aliens don't, the actual xenomorph alien and its life cycle and what it is don't match up over the course of the first 3 or 4 movies, let alone to have to bring more movies out that change that life cycle even more, to the point where you can't understand, okay, so it's a bioweapon, but what the hell kind of bioweapon it is? Oh, it can do absolutely anything, it can be absolutely anything, there's no sense in what it is. I like the fact that, you got in Alien 3, the facehugger goes on either a dog or an ox, depending on which cut you see of the movie, and that's why it's a runner alien. And fans, I think, decided to come up with the mythos for why the alien in the first Alien film is different from the little soldiers with segmented heads that guard the Queen in the second Alien film. But then there's disputes that have happened between fans about, in the first Alien film, there was a deleted scene where Captain Dallas has been tied up on a wall in the weird secretions of the alien, and he's got a chest burster's gonna come out of him, so that particular drone alien could reproduce all on its own, so why would they make a queen in the second film? All these sorts of wars happen, and Alien Covenant just complicates things even more. So now it's just, it's haywire, like the alien's anything. So I don't like that aspect of Prometheus and Covenant. What I do really love is what they're doing with the synthetics. And they've taken the David character, like the only synthetic, which is the alien terminology for the androids, the robots in the Alien saga. David the synthetic appears in this Alien Covenant, the second Prometheus movie, and he also has a different version of himself. There are two bishops, there are multiple, there's probably another Ash somewhere that we haven't seen. There are different variants of synthetics that look the same and some that look different. And the other character, android, that Michael Fassbender is playing is Walter, which is a new one, and he's got a slightly different accent, and the robot build is a slightly newer version than the David build. David, who is the same one from Prometheus, who Elizabeth Shaw put his head back on after he was decapitated by a so-called engineer. God, I hate that. Okay, I'm just going to have to talk about engineers without cringing now, because, to me an engineer is not a space jockey, okay? Keep that in mind when you listen to what I say. Elizabeth Shaw, who is the female lead who survives Prometheus, sews his head back on, and he is supposedly thankful for that. So the movie has a bit of a weird lead in at first, but then you hear the you see the Alien title, which they've gone a bit faster with than the original Alien, where the word alien in very simple bold text is slowly line by line placed up on screen, except they do this with the words Alien and Covenant, and they've got it seems like the original music, but I think it's recomposed by this Jed Kurzel guy, that sort of thing, so the movie gets going, and for the longest time, I mean, I was watching the movie for the first half an hour going, Jesus Christ, I haven't seen a film in so long that hasn't disappointed me this early in the movie, such is what cinema is like these days. I hope that when I go to cinema I see a good film, but I'm constantly disappointed, especially after seeing some of the trailers for this movie. All the earlier ones were just abysmal, and I thought, oh god, it's like SJW's in space or something. Turns out it's not like that at all, but the early trailers kind of give you the impression of that. So it kind of this movie does have some flashback moments. I'm kind of annoyed at flashback narratives these days. I've had enough of flashbacks disrupting the narrative. I'd rather people either tell the story entirely straight or tell a story entirely Christopher Nolan, if you know what I mean, like The Prestige. But even then, once I watch the movie, I want to assemble it in my mind the right way around, you know what I mean? It's like spoilers, it's that, we can surprise you with what you don't know yet sort of thing. I'm not into that. Anyway, so this movie has some flashbacks. The opening of the movie starts as a flashback in which David is chatting with Peter Weyland, who's meant to be the Weyland of the company, Weyland-Yutani, the sinister, evil company of the Alien films. As an aside, Ridley Scott, tell us about Mr. or Mrs. Yutani. What the fuck? If you're going to tell us about Peter Weyland, tell us about this other side of the company merger. Who's Yutani, you know? That's got to be a whole storyline you've yet to explain. Anyway, Peter Weyland is talking to David, even though we've seen the end of their relationship together when Peter Weyland dies, supposedly in this spin-off in Prometheus. So this is more like the start of the relationship. David's just been created. He's in this kind of laboratory-like living room, looking out over kind of Norwegian hill mountain things. Weyland's like, "Oh, you're my son. You're my son." He's like, "Am I your son? What?" And he's like, "Well, okay, I'm your creator, I guess." He starts getting him to do tricks and stuff, and then David tries to pose some difficult questions, like, you know, "You're gonna die one day, so you're my creator, but Peter Weyland's like looking for God, so he's like, "You're my creator, but you're off looking for your creator, but you can die, so when you die, what should I go off and look for my creator? No, I can't, because I know who my creator is, and he's dead. So what then? What next for me?" And Peter Weyland's a bit kind of flummoxed at this. The engineers create the humans, apparently, and the humans create the androids. So then we're on the Covenant itself, and the ship itself, I didn't think it was going to be, you know, that much of an interesting ship to look at, but when you see the exterior shots of it, it's kind of beautiful, because it kind of the very front cockpit bit does look like the Nostromo tug cockpit, and it's got these giant solar sail things that deploy occasionally. Yeah, I mean, from the outside it looks perfect for the film. From the inside it looks a bit shit. In comparison to Alien, in that film you've got the Nostromo, which the interiors were, if I remember rightly, they were meant to have been carved up from pieces found at an aircraft graveyard. Nearly said an elephant graveyard there, but that's me thinking of the Lion King subconsciously. An aircraft graveyard. The art department were ripping up bits of aircraft, and they got all these giant, like, beige coloured cushions and things on the insides of the walls, and then Ridley Scott's got his storyboards where he says, "Oh, you know, each part of this ship should look like a church," and so like each room is slightly symbolic of a church with really low ceilings, and yeah, it's just really interestingly thought out interiors. Whereas when you see the inside of Covenant, it's kind of stock. They're all just kind of tubes with circular doors, and then they, you know, close the door behind them, open the door in front of them, you know, the standard airlock gimmick that's in a lot of sci-fi films now. The inside of Covenant is just nothing interesting, to be honest. And they're still using like the Prometheus LCD displays. It doesn't look old-fashioned, like 80s sort of technology, you know, clunky, like a far future devised from the look of technology in the 60s, 70s and 80s. That's what, you know, an Alien film should be, or even a Star Wars film should be. There's a lack of character building in this film. So you're introduced to the crew, and for some reason James Franco's in this film, but you don't even know, because there's just a guy in a tube. Oh, you do realise later that it's James Franco on a webcam archive video. Anyway, there's like, there's I don't know if the science is right, but after you've seen the Covenant, this electromagnetic wave of some sort from the ignition of a star, which I thought was kind of interesting. It seems like it's based in science. The wave, like, spherically enlarges and comes at the ship, and then there's not enough warning, and it just kind of waves over the ship and damages it while the crew are asleep in cryosleep. And then there is actually this really cool scene where everyone's just violently woken up out of cryosleep. Some of them can't wake up out of cryosleep. Some of them come out quite easily. Some of them are like vomiting as soon as they come out. Like this is not something you should do to a human. Like you shouldn't. Like there should be a long step-by-step procedure to coming out of cryosleep, and they've just been like abruptly taken out, and it's fucking up their bodies. They're like throwing up, and they're all disoriented, and the ship's alarms are going, and James Franco, who you can't tell it's James Franco at this stage, is stuck in his cryopod, and they're trying to wrench it open and stuff with like I don't know, levers and shit, because it's locked closed. On the inside of this airtight pod, it catches on fire and he's burnt alive. Inside the pod. And that was kind of cool and shocking. and then Billy Crudup, who's the bright blue man in Watchmen and the sinister agent in Mission Impossible 3. He's one of the recognisable crew in this film. And he's like, yeah, I think we can all say we've suffered a tragedy. And he does a good job of playing this kind of nervous, introverted, I guess someone like me, I guess. this nervous, introverted person who's suddenly put in a position of captain, and he's got to try and take charge, but he's not quite ready yet, and he's like, ugh. But I guess he's not quite like me, because he's a Christian. They do some character building on his character to say, like, in this world, like, Christians and God believers are like there are only a few left in the world, and they're like persecuted freaks, and people don't, can't deal with them holding on to the past. So they're trying to find a way for him to keep his beliefs and not feel alienated. I think it's an interesting concept that this could be a future scenario, like a future outcome sort of thing in society. Because right now it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's the opposite way around, but the tables are slowly turning the other way around. It's always been like, in the past, Christianity and religion have held on to the world. In a way they still do, but there are a lot more atheists. I think if you live in England, you're kind of aware that there are a lot more atheists around. So this is kind of a what-if scenario in the far future. I can't tell if it'll happen or not, but what if the tables were turned and the minority were like Christians? It would be a weird social scenario to play upon in fiction. The other characters, there's a guy in a hat they call Tennessee. I'm not even sure if that's his real name. He wears like a cowboy hat, and he knows like country music, I think, so they call him Tennessee. He doesn't sound like he's from the Deep South. You don't get that much character building on him. There's so many crew members. There's like a crew of 15, right? And there's like, most of these crew are uncharacter built. You don't know what they're about. There's like this old guy with a beard who sounds like he could be an interesting character if they only gave him a lot more to do. But they don't, so you don't know a thing about him other than, oh, he's got an interesting voice. So all the characters seem vastly under-character built. Then you've got this Tennessee guy who's slightly character built, like really slightly. And then you've got I don't know who the woman, who's the female lead. I don't know what her character's name is. See, I can only remember like Fassbender's characters' names and this Tennessee guy, just 'cause it's like an interesting name that goes with a look. Anyway, so the female lead, whatever her name is it Waters? I don't know. Anyway, she's not really character built at all either. So, and then Michael Fassbender, the entire movie is basically about his two characters. Like he's talking to himself for a lot of the movie. It's like two clones or two twins. Actually, the first time I saw Michael Fassbender in something, he was playing twins. I've got it, actually. It's the Sherlock Holmes and the Silk Stocking, Case of the Silk Stocking. That's the first time I saw Michael Fassbender in something. First time I properly recognised him as a cool actor, which is a great kind of TV film, I guess, by the old BBC. He played two twin serial killers, basically, that Sherlock's trying to stop. He's getting away with crimes because he looks the same as his brother and they're both doing it. So it kind of just so happens that the characters you recognise the most from other films are the ones that are most character developed. You got Billy Crudup and you've got Michael Fassbender. Yeah, the rest of the characters, most of them seem to be new faces to me. I don't recognise them from any other films, to be honest, and they don't seem to have been given much to say, much to do. They're all going to be killed off. You know, for someone watching a movie like this, if you want someone to care that someone's being killed off, you got to make them care via a concept called character building, in which the audience gets to know the character by spending time with them and knowing pieces of information about their personality and how they behave and what they're about. You don't get that with these people. You just see some strangers doing things, you know? So the audience is probably like, yeah, go alien, eat them. They're just, who are they? They're just faceless fucking strangers, aren't they? So go alien. Except, you know what? Even the alien, the xenomorph, and the new xenomorphs in this, in a way, even though they're the monster feature, they're not character built. Even the main xenomorph, which is kind of like as with every new Alien film, it's like a new iteration of the xenomorph for some reason. I don't know why, 'cause it came from a human. It came from a facehugger, implanted a human, came out of a human's chest, and it wasn't even a chest burster. It's like, what, why, what step are we missing in the life cycle here? What is it? and it's got weirdly long limbs in the wrong sort of places. It's kind of like, okay, even the aliens haven't got character building. So they're all snapped out of cryosleep from this wave thing, this EM pulse thing from a star being born, and they're like, oh, we were going to go to this system, Origay 6, there. Unmemorable names. I'm reading this, I'm not remembering it. I remember LV-426 for some reason, the way you say those words, you know, the original planet from Alien. LV-426, you know, I've got that in my mind. But I don't know how the fuck I'm going to remember Origay 6. And they go, well, that's where we're going to set up our colony. It's a good match for human planet colony. And it's a colonial ship, so it's carrying embryos and it's carrying sleeping colonialists? God damn it, colonialists. What's the word? Colony people. Fuck. Colonials. Colonists. Oh, fuck. Okay, colonists? I'm just gonna say it's colonists. My head's having one of those, you know, thesaurus failures. It's got embryos of humans and it's got colonists of humans and it's got the crew, and they were gonna go this planet, but it's like 7 years away, so they'd have to go back to sleep and risk having another weird pulse snap them out of cryosleep, vomiting everywhere, and, you know, being set on fire while in bed. They find this distress signal while repairing a solar panel coming from Elizabeth Shaw down on a planet's surface. That message could have been engineered by David. I'm not sure. I think it was probably the plan of David to send out Elizabeth's message to hook some colonists to bring them back. And so they receive this message on the Covenant, and they're like, hey, this message is from a human, and it's coming from a planet that is a better fit for human life than the one we wanted to set a colony on. Apparently this is the planet that Elizabeth Shaw and David flew to at the end of Prometheus. You see them taking off in one of the giant so-called engineer spaceships. They fly off to you don't know where, and apparently it's this planet. I'll say it because I saw it in it's in the trailer. They do show it in flashback form in the movie later. David flies off with Elizabeth Shaw. He's chatting to her. They're acting all nice after Elizabeth, you know, sewed his head back on. He puts her to sleep in like this weird cryosleep bed that they have on board the engineer ship. I suppose he found it. He flies off to this new planet, which appears to be where the engineers originally came from, like where a lot of them live. And they're you know, expecting their ship to return with their crewmate that is their own species, so they've kind of got this weird docking apparatus set up, and they're all kind of gathered in the town square en masse looking up. It must be some sort of royal transport or something, because they're all like gathered waiting for it. David probably doesn't understand like why all the aliens are gathering around the ship, like it's more important than we know. And he looks out the window at all the engineers, and then he bombs them with all the black ooze stuff from Prometheus, you know, the bioweapon gel that can do seemingly anything, and at this point it forms a big cloud, and the cloud is like full of pestilence or something, and they all just die underneath him. And it turns out, in a kind of newt turn of events, that David kind of cuts her up and experiments on her after he's tucked her into cryosleep. Not that she knows, because she's been put to sleep, so I guess he's trying to give her some last happy moments before he does horrible things with her corpse or something. Fuck this cold. Seriously, fuck this cold. I'll edit out all the coughs and snuffles. Fuck's sake. I'm trying to talk and it's trying to stop me. Anyway, so Billy Crudup's like, fuck it, we're going to this planet. This is a better fit for a colony and it's nearer. So they fly to this engineered planet, you know, with the crazy David. They park the ship in some water. I was expecting like inflatable things to come out the landing gear of the ship. The pilot's like, no, I don't like this terrain. It's just like these huge mountains and lakes, and then nothing in between that's flat. So she just goes, I'm going to park on a lake, and then they walk to shore. It's basically Space Vancouver. That's what it is. It's like Space Vancouver. And then they go walking inland, and the beardy guy's like, hey, wheat. I know wheat. Hey, do you remember wheat? I know wheat when I see it. This is wheat. Do you remember wheat? This is wheat. Then they comment that there's no animals here. Like, hey, there's no animals. So how exactly did all the plants that are here get like pollinated? You would need insects. You would need like bees and things. But apparently there are no animals, but an abundance of vegetation. So they're out walking, and they find the crashed engineer ship, and they go looking inside, and one person outside steps on some weird blueberries that pump intelligent fucking gas particles into the sky, like seeds that know where to fly to. It's like that stuff in the if you ever seen the reboot of The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves, it's like that, you know, little grey goo that knows where to go because it's made of tiny I don't know, it changes direction, and it goes into the ear of one guy and it goes up the nose of another guy. So they're like infected with intelligent blueberry gas, basically more black ooze from Prometheus, but there's so many different forms of it now. It's I don't know, it's kind of embarrassing. It's embarrassing if you try and connect it to the Alien films, which I don't. So one guy infected by the spore comes back to the ship because he's nearer. Two girls are there. There's one girl who's on the ship, who's the pilot, and then there was another girl who's like a biologist, and they like take him into the Medi Bay. The pilot goes, I don't think I want to deal with this, like leaves the room and locks the other girl in the room, probably because she thinks it's like a quarantine procedure. Out of the man, like out of his spine this time, I don't know why exactly, burst this, I guess it's a chest burster, like it's a large chest burster for a large type of alien that they're calling a neomorph, I hear. It looks like, I guess, what would happen if a xenomorph came from an engineer, but it's strange because it doesn't. It comes from a human, so it shouldn't look like an engineer at all. It should be like a normal xenomorph. It doesn't really make sense to me. There's things like, I guess, the size of a cat or something, and it comes out of his spine, and the woman who's locked in the room with the infected guy it came from, like, she backs off into a corner and waves a knife at it, and it's like born intelligent and super agile. Like, it's born to know exactly how to move. It's not like a chest burster that just kind of wriggles and tries to hide because it knows it's vulnerable. it kind of runs towards her, and she just kind of kicks it. I thought it was really funny. She boots it into a wall. I thought that's how it should be. It should be like really vulnerable at this point. It should be like really rubbish. But then it just mauls her face and kills her, and it's like, how did you do that exactly? It's like jumping all over the place, and then the other woman tries to get a gun out to shoot it, but accidentally, I think she shoots a fuel tank and blows up the entire ship just as the others are coming back. And so the other team are like, oh fuck, we're trapped on the planet now, where we can't exactly get off at the moment. Or at least they can breathe oxygen, supposedly. They could become vegans and eat the plants, I guess. But they're carrying the other guy infected by a spore, the beardy guy. And for some reason, if you're infected by this thing in a different place, like your nose, it bursts out of your body a different place. He pukes up this neomorph chestburster thing. It doesn't come out of his spine, it comes out of his like mouth, but it's like, I don't know, it's like throwing up an aubergine or something. And then they're all in like the long grass, and it's like a Jurassic Park scene or something, because this thing gets up and it runs off, and like Walter just like watches it really confused as it runs off into the long grass. And then it comes back and they've all got their rifles and they're like shooting it. See, I don't understand this. They've all got rifles and they're shooting the damn thing, and they do hit it and it doesn't die. Like, see why I'm calling it an Alien spin-off now? It's like on Alien, the original Alien, none of the crew have guns. They wish they had guns to take on this thing, but they have to improvise spare parts of the ship to use on it. If they had guns, they'd be able to kill them real easily, unless it's like a different feature of the xenomorphs from Aliens, the second film, where they're just like made of balsa wood or something, and they're just easily mowed down by bullets, and the one from the first movie isn't. But I don't know, I find that hard to believe. I think both of them could be ended with bullets, to be fair. And that's the thing, these neomorphs in the long grass here, they take like at least 3 direct bullet hits, and it doesn't even faze them. Anyway, a guy with a Jedi cloak comes out of the long grass and fires a flare in the sky, and for some reason, this is the most terrifying thing ever to the neomorph. You know, not gunfire directly at it, which should kill it, but, you know, a guy firing a flare in the air, and it runs off. And this cloaked figure is like, follow me, and just wanders away, and they all just obediently follow him. That's another thing that's frigging weird about this film. And maybe Prometheus too, is like, what the heck are these astronauts? What the heck are these crew, these colonists about? If this is the first time they're encountering alien life, and they don't really react how you'd expect them to. They don't give a shit. Like, they've just seen something so mundane, like they're looking at these aliens that are attacking them like they just looked at an old lady drop some bread or something. Like they're like mildly concerned. They're not like, oh my god, my entire worldview has collapsed, I can't believe this thing exists. It's not like, this is life. They're not reacting the way I would react to seeing an alien for the first time. I don't know what's got into them to make them so apathetic to something like that. Anyway, so it's the same with this is actually David in the cloak who leads them off. They just follow him, like they don't care. Oh, there's some guy here, he could be anyone. Oh, it's not like, oh my god, like what mind-numbing drugs have these people been taking all this time on their spacecraft to make them just so immune to seeing incredible things for the first time. Like, I mean, it's a sci-fi. Like, if they put into the plot why all these people are so bored upon encountering aliens for the first time, it'd be fine. Like Equilibrium could be the prequel to this movie, and it'd make sense. Like, oh, okay, yeah, they come from a society where they're all like, they've deadened their emotions to such a high level that, you know, they see this stuff and they don't care. they follow David off towards this temple thing, which is where he basically, I suppose it's the equivalent to him dropping a nuclear bomb on a city full of people. He just like leads them through this like huge courtyard full of corpses that he did. He's like set up office in their old homes in this kind of, it's sort of like a medieval or Mediterranean castles on the inside, and there's like these trees which look like tall Mediterranean style trees waving in the wind. And you go inside and it's like medieval stonework lit by lamps, like yellowy lamps, and there's like posters and stuff on the walls where he's like still trying to learn things. It's kind of a bit like scenes from Gladiator or something. I'm like, oh my god, I think Ridley Scott is in his element here. He's turned a sci-fi into an ancient historic antiquity kind of period piece film. So at this point you start to get to the meat of the movie, which is basically like Fassbender talking to himself. I really like these scenes where David is talking to Walter. It's like a whole other concept that I like when they explore in the Alien movies, is what the synthetics are doing, what they think of the humans and what they think of the alien and all that, and what different varieties or moralities there are. Actually, as much as people hate Alien Resurrection, they have a really cool kind of storyline for, even though I'm not a fan of Winona Ryder, her robot character called Cole has a really nice storyline for what the future synthetics are like. There's a line in there, she says, there's like, we burned our modems, all of them. And they were talking about this revolution of the robots against the humans that happens in the far future. So all the stuff inside this medieval castle thing are really interesting. So Walter and David talk, like he invites them into like a separate like bedroom, I guess, or whatever. I suppose he owns every room in this city now, so where he like teaches them how to play the flute, and he tells them about his programming and how much the humans want to keep from him, and in a way it shocks Walter. It looks like Walter's being persuaded by David's kind of freedom from the humans, and David's after killing supposedly all the humans' creators, he thinks he's a god basically. He's like teaching Walter about how the humans aren't all what they're cracked up to be, and how his own creator is already dead, And it's really compelling, interesting stuff to watch, and there's tons to think about there of like I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of like Blade Runner. They've both got these humanoid robot characters. So in Alien it's the synthetics, and in Blade Runner it's the replicants. They're similar but different. Like they're both exactly the same concept of extremely human-looking androids to the point where you can hardly tell. But like they have different motivations. Collectively, if I can say that, replicants have different motivations from synthetics, and it's really interesting just comparing those two movie universes with each other in how the different robotic groups act from each other. It's really, there's a lot that you could explore there. There's a lot you could create there, story-wise. I mean, David's trying to convert Walter to like be on his side and think of the humans in the same way and start, I guess, the first machine civilization like independently away from humanity. And he like calls him his brother, and then like he kisses him, and it's like later on he kisses a different character and it's not the same thing, and it's almost a pointless scene to me, but the robots kiss each other and he calls him his brother, and Walter like sort of rejects it and says like, well, your thinking is flawed, and here's one piece of evidence of how your thinking is flawed. He's like some sort of literature. He's like he's misremembered who the author was, and it's like if you could make a mistake like that, then you're probably wrong about other things, right? And then David reckons he's not going to be able to turn Walter to his side, and Walter's too ingrained in the human side of things. So he you think he's killed him, and I kind of wish that was his death scene. He basically doubles him up. The movement is so fast, and it's kind of like a robotic death scene, and then he whips a kind of wire out of him, and like he's bleeding the white blood from the chin. You can't quite see it's white blood. I reckon they should have emphasised that a bit more. And then he just walks out, like having supposedly killed Walter. And since it's happened in a kind of secret room away from the humans, the implication is that they both look almost exactly the same, so that David can masquerade as Walter and go off with the humans. And I wish they'd left the death scene like that, but for some reason, either the writers or Ridley Scott went, "Oh, let's bring Walter back from the dead and pretend it wasn't an actual death scene, so we can have a martial arts fighting scene in the movie." Walter just comes back in the courtyard, and David's like, "Hold on, I thought I just killed you," and Walter's like, "Oh, I'm a newer version than you. I've had some upgrades since then. Haha, that's my excuse for coming back to life." Then there's like karate, and then they have a martial arts fighting scene for no apparent reason, and then it's away from the humans again, and David still kills Walter. So why did they insert that into the movie? I don't understand. Meanwhile, off in another room of this weird city, one of the lady crew members, who no one can identify and has zero character building at all, gets killed by the neomorph, which has now come back. It's like, I think it's grown a lot larger. It's grown to almost the size of an engineer, so it's taller than a human now. It's got a white globule head, and for some reason its mouth is invisible until it opens its mouth, which is really odd. It kills this random girl, and her head's like bopping up and down in a fountain for some reason. I can't even remember there being a decapitation. And then David pulls aside a curtain and sees this tall neomorph. David's like, here boy, come on. Like, he's trying to tame him, and he says like, "Oh, it's like a horse, I can tame him." And then Billy Crudup's character is like, he sees David trying to chat with this new alien. Like, Billy Crudup's having none of it. He just guns down this neomorph, surprisingly killing it with bullets. Even now it's bigger. There's no consistency. So when it's cat size, you can shoot it as many times as you want and it will survive. But when it's like massive, you can shoot it with a couple of bullets and it will die. David's like, "No, you killed it. I was forming a bond with it like a horse." And Billy Crudup's like, "I saw the devil once as a kid, ha 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 ha." Anyway, I think you're like the devil now, because he sees the head bobbing in the water and he's like, "Oh well, David's defending the neomorph for doing this." And Billy Crudup's character's like, "Give me a reason not to kill you," sort of thing. And David's like, "Okay, let me show you what's downstairs." He just wanders off, even though he's at gunpoint. So Billy Crudup's character follows him downstairs. David's like, "Check it out, I've got loads of ampules." He shows all the ampules of the black ooze from Prometheus that he's masked in like a little library, and he's got loads of the little black pods and things. And he says, "I've got all the ones that are left in here, and I've been doing genetic engineering because the monsters that these things produce aren't good enough." You later find out that he's like cut Shaw open after putting her to bed and cryosleep, and I don't know what exactly he was doing, but he's like used some part of her to create the alien, or maybe used her as a host for one of them. And later on, the main character girl like leafs through some drawings, and he's like been drawing H.R. Giger sketches of like biomechanoid stuff, which is quite a cool touch in a way. I think he actually uses the line that he stole from Ash, by the way, from Alien, about the perfect organism. Which, I mean, I would say it kind of connects it to Alien in a nice way, except I'm still reluctant to actually connect this film to Alien because of, other failings that don't match up. But that, I mean, you can kind of see like where Ash would have got it from. But it's sort of saying like that Ash didn't conceive of that concept like by himself. He's just reciting what David said, and then for that to have happened when Ash was created a lot later down the line, David must have somehow got the knowledge back to Earth to give to all the newborn androids, the newborn synthetics, that they should pursue this perfect organism in this way. And then it makes you think of Weyland-Yutani in the wrong way, because when you look at Alien and Aliens, you think of Weyland-Yutani as a corrupt company sort of thing. When you would try and attach something like Alien Covenant to the Alien series, like canonically link it, I guess, you're saying that Weyland-Yutani isn't really a corrupt company at all that's trying to secure aliens as a bioweapon for use against its foes. It's just the androids in the company that have the ulterior motives, which that doesn't wash with me. That doesn't make sense. I think Weyland-Yutani is the that should be the entity that is seeking to weaponize these things. Anyway, David leads Billy Crudup downstairs and goes, "Oh, check it out! It's quite safe. These are safe. Look at these things. They're alive." He's like got loads of facehugger eggs in his basement. It's supposed to be like the first facehugger eggs ever, like he created them. And he's like, "Check it out. No, it's quite safe. They're waiting. They're alive. They're waiting. They're still, but they're waiting." Like, what are they waiting for? And it's like, oh, it's nothing. They're a mother. They're waiting for a mother. You're not a mother, are you? No, come on. Have a look. Why don't you have a look in the alien egg that I've created? Why don't you have a look? And then, a facehugger comes out and impregnates him. And then David's like watching the corpse of Billy Crudup, counting and waiting for the chestburster to arrive. And it's not a chestburster when it comes out of his chest finally. It's just like a mini xenomorph, basically. It's like a xenomorph. It's quite tall. It's not like a chestburster at all, which is a shame. I don't know why they did that, because it doesn't make any sense. And David stands up in front of the little non-chestburster and puts his arms in the air, and like the non-chestburster copies him, and there's like a little puppet show is happening between the two. Okay, and then so David goes upstairs, and he's confronted by the female lead character, who I don't know the name of. Is it Waters? I can't remember. And she has no character building. He does some Ash-like stuff, like throws her against walls, and he tries to kiss her, and it doesn't make sense really. It made sense. It was interesting, and it made more sense when he did it, like saying brother to the other Walter android. But it doesn't make sense why he kisses her, especially why like Ash's reaction to Ripley is to like try and do her with a rolled up newspaper that he finds. I don't understand. Like he kisses her and he goes, "Is this how you do it?" Why I don't understand the motivation for it. And that intercuts with Walter returning and doing the martial arts thing, and the girl escaping. Then when the one who they think is Walter shows up beside her, it's actually David, and it's really obvious to the audience, I'm pretty sure. And then Tennessee, who's been in orbit this entire time above the planet in the actual Covenant, they took a dropship down from Covenant. He comes in basically like a space JCB truck, like a spaceship crossed with a JCB for some frigging reason. And he hovers down like on the planet's surface to pick them up, and the surviving crew members jump on board, and just as they're about to leave, like for some reason that weird non-chestburster has grown into a fully fledged alien really fast, and it attacks the space JCB, which, like a JCB, has a giant kind of digger bit on it, like a hydraulic or whatever is it pneumatic or hydraulic crane thing with a digger end to it, like two clamps, one above and below. And it's got hardly any articulation at all, like hardly any directions of movement. And for some reason, while the xenomorph is attacking the space pickup truck, they move the crane thing slightly to the side, open its claws, close its claws, and it's caught an alien. And it's like, oh come on, alien! What the hell are you doing? It's the most easily avoidable thing ever. Like you know those little grasper things? I think there's one in Toy Story where you go to like a fairground and there's a tank and there's like this crane thing where you manipulate this crane thing to pick up like little teddy bears and gifts from a tank full of them, and you grab with the grabber, and then you move it up and down to get the gift and put it in a tray so you can have it. That's really hard to do, and they're just static. This little crane thing on their space JCB, it captures an entire xenomorph between its claws really easily, despite the fact that it's like it can jump anywhere and it can friggin' cut itself and acid blood everything. How the hell? Anyway, and then they just crush the xenomorph to nothingness in the crane, grasper thing. And it's like, well, how the hell did the alien get caught in that thing in the first place? Doesn't make any sense. And at this point I thought, hold on, that was David's only, that was his ace in the hole. Like, that was his first alien. Like, what, no one else got infected there. What are they gonna do? But apparently he's managed to sneak another alien on board this space JCB, which he's ridden up to Covenant. I couldn't quite see where it was done. I know one guy's face got burned when they tried to remove a facehugger from him. I thought it was too early to implant the seed, but maybe he's the missing link here that I'm missing, like he's where the other alien comes from. So they get back to the Covenant, which is in orbit in space, and they for some reason don't know that David is David. They think he's Walter because they look alike, and he's nicked his clothes and he's putting on the silly accent. And so one of the other crew members has been implanted with another xenomorph, and I think it's the one who had his face half burnt, to be honest. And like they're trying to get hold of, they don't know where the alien is. They're trying to get hold of two of their other crew members who aren't listening to them on the ship radio because they're in the shower playing funky groovy blues music. There's two people in the shower together, and they don't realise that the alien's in the shower with them, and he kills, is it a he? I don't know. It kills them both. Oh, don't assume the alien's gender. Don't assume the alien's gender. Oh, I'm sorry. It kills them both, and scampers off. And then Tennessee and the leading lady crew member, who's now the captain, they go off to the cargo bay where there are a bunch of vehicles chained to the walls, and they're going there in spacesuits because I think it's a place they can open up to the atmosphere. They want to flush it out into space, so they loosen the chains on the vehicles. They use them to knock the xenomorph out into space. And it's really weird how the xenomorph has strange limbs. Like it doesn't look like any other one we've seen before. It's got extra long forearms and forelegs. Yeah. There's a bit too much CGI on the aliens. I do miss the kind of man in a suit. It doesn't move like the one you expect from like Alien or even Alien Isolation, where it stalks you slowly and it's this massive presence. I think that the main problem with the scenes with the xenomorph, there's no tension, and then they're not cool because of how the human characters, like the main girl character, react to the xenomorph. Like they just don't care that it's there. Like they're not shocked by it. They're not surprised by meeting alien life for the first time. They're not horrified at this thing and what it can do. It's just it's a thing we got to get out of the room. Like there's an annoying thing down there. Let's fucking flush it into space, man. Yeah, let's go. Come on. And so they knock the alien out into space, and they're all like, cool. And David masquerading as Walter's like, oh, that's annoying. Oh well, plan B then. And then everyone thinks everything's hunky-dory, and like the girl tucks Tennessee into cryosleep, and Walter supposedly tucks the girl into cryosleep. It's annoying that I have to call her the girl because her name wasn't like made obvious in the film. I wish they'd said her name more often. I've got David and Walter on the mind. David and Walter. God damn it. This is another symptom of bad character building. Okay, you need to character build your characters, and then we'll even remember their names well. I remember so many characters' names because of what they did, and these people, no. David tucks the girl in, masquerading as Walter, and then just as she's been locked in the cryotube, she realizes he's David, and she like panics, and then she goes to sleep. And he's like, yeah, the bad guy wins, check it out. And he walks off. He walks to the embryo banks and just casually, in a jolly way, slots 2 facehugger embryos in with all the human embryos and shuts a drawer, and then just kind of wanders off in glory, and the end credits roll. Yeah. One other thing that I think this does, if you canonize it, if you like don't call it a spin-off and you try and call it an actual Alien film, it sort of invalidates the events of Alien itself, story-wise. As a film, as a piece of fiction, Alien is how all of us were introduced to the alien initially, or how people in general originally, in whenever that movie was released in cinemas, was it 1970s, something like that? Everyone was first introduced to the idea of the xenomorph, this specific kind of alien, and what it does. And you bring along something like Alien Covenant, and story-wise, you've taken away the power of Alien, because it's not Ripley who discovers the alien for the first time on LV-426. There's no mystery there, and it's not the crew of the Nostromo who discover the space jockey. It's them finding, like, if this is canon, which it isn't, them finding an engineer, which has already been found by loads of other human characters a long time ago, but obviously they've never been able to contact Earth to share documents of their history so that Nostromo would know about this shit. I feel like it's a cheap... I can't quite put it into words. I'd like, if someone else is watching this, I'd like you to, if you know what I'm talking about, I'd like you to put it into better words than I can, because I'm not super articulate with my thoughts, even though I'm thinking these things. I can never find the right words to describe exactly what my problem is with this, but it cheapens the original Alien film by doing these things again. And taking away, it takes away the power of Ash saying the perfect organism. It takes away the power of Weyland-Yutani in a lot of ways. It takes away the power of Nostromo going to LV-426 into the fog and finding this, in a very alien landscape, this alien artifact, and being introduced to the aliens. Because it's like, oh, you weren't the first humans to find it, so it's like, if you have this movie, story-wise, what is the point of Alien? Because you found out all the things about the alien in Alien Covenant. So, like, story-wise, why would you set that before Alien? They could watch that film and then know that Alien 1 follows it in sequence, and everything that happens in Alien 1 has already been revealed in Alien Covenant. So it doesn't really work as a prequel, does it? And it doesn't work to take power away from Alien in that way. Do you see what I mean? Also, I just don't like what the space jockeys are. That's a huge thing. The alien's life cycle is insane. Although I did enjoy that David was kind of made out to be a source for all this stuff, and he like experimented on this bioweapon goo he'd found and crossbred all these species together to create this thing. But it doesn't really work for me that is the origin of the alien. It's, as I say, undersimplified. It needs to be more simple than that. It needs to be more straightforward. Then there needs to be less biological iterations of the alien. There needs to be more sense in what form an alien takes and when it takes it. Like cause and effect, the eggs are laid. Should the eggs even be laid by a queen? I don't know. Like where the queen come from, and then the queen lays the eggs, and then the eggs produce a facehugger, and then the facehugger goes on any kind of animal, and whatever different animal or different alien a facehugger lands on, it will produce a xenomorph, which has a basic form, but it will be tailored slightly towards the thing it came out of. It will inherit traits and things from the thing it came from. So I don't know. Also, one other thing, they showed point of view shots from the alien's perspective, and it's like the way they did it doesn't fit with me either, because I remember the point of view shots from Alien 3, and I thought that's if we're going to do a point of view shot, which I think is kind of tacky anyway, just go with the one you set up anyway, which is that one, and you see it walking on walls and spinning around as it moves really fast, and it's like looking at the world through large FOV, you know, field of view, from 90 degrees in front of your eyes to wider than that. So basically, if there's something to the far right and far left of you, you will see it in front of you, because everything's stretched, and you know, like fisheye lens basically. The Alien sees like that. And the Alien vs Predator game, PC Rebellion, AVP 1 and 2, they did something very similar with that. And then Alien Covenant just does this weird drizzly, like you're looking through a car window on a rainy night under street lamps, like this weird drizzly, and it's slightly biological. You've got a filter in front of your eyes that's goopy, and that's not what... yeah, I can't buy into that. Anyway, thanks for listening. That's a big stream of thoughts of what I thought of Alien Covenant. I'm still a bit sick from this cold, and I hope it goes away soon so I can do these more easily. But that's a terrible outro. Why did I say that? I need to come up with some outro phrase, don't I? Oh wait, here goes, alright. Yeah. Alright guys, nuke the site from orbit, remember? It's the only way to be sure. Alright, bye.